Keith Brothag, and I'll be presenting my mobile app FanBid. This is for Boston University CS 683 course. So just an overview, FanBid is a mobile app for fantasy football drafting. So just a little background what fantasy football is. Basically, users get to create their own team of real NFL players. Most of the apps, they function a little different, but most of them work on the premise that each user's team is then a composite score is calculated based on player stats, and then each week that team competes against other teams. It could just be competing against one team or many teams. So what each of these leagues offer, and some of the different apps that are available, such as the first three, ESPN, Yahoo, and CBS, these operate more as traditional fantasy football apps where basically a snake draft is used, where users get to draft their players in a sequential order, whereas an app like FanDuel is more budget-based, where you have to pay a fixed price for a player. Where FanBid's a little bit different is it offers an auction-style draft, which, again, some leagues can do. They just manage offline. So I know, some cases you can use CBS or Yahoo or ESPN still to do this, and then offline you manage an auction draft. So what FanBid offers is a way to track that actual drafting activity. So some of the current features for that: basic create, rate, update, delete for league and team creation, the ability to conduct drafts, which includes nominating players for drafts, bidding, and closing out bids, and then also player management to track what players have been drafted by which team for what price, and then also removing players from teams if needed. So just quick on the design, couple things. The app supports leagues and teams, obviously, and then there's a global list of players. So then there's also business logic in the application that the players can only exist on one team within a single league. However, those players are shared across leagues, so one player could be on multiple teams as long as those teams are in different leagues. And then we've got the bridge entity that kind of helps track that for which teams have which players. So just in general, some of the components, there's a lot of activities, obviously, and then intents used to navigate those. The intents themselves exist a lot to, again, not only moving to an activity, but I have a lot of functionality to move back to the prior activity. And those intents use a lot of extras as well to track the league and team IDs, just to keep that context throughout the navigation. There's pretty heavy use of a SQL-like database, again, to track the leagues and teams along with the players. So I'll go over that a little bit. And then also use of recycler views, card views, and spinners in a few different areas. And then just one case of using a background thread and handler looper for a little bit more of an expensive database operation that happens. So here's just a list of the activities. Again, in the demo, I'll go through each of these, but just basic main activity, management of leagues and teams, and then the drafting activities that are available. Okay, so with that, I'll go over to the demonstration next, and then following the demonstration, I'll do a quick overview of the project structure and go through a couple snippets of the code. Okay, so this is the demo of the FanBid app. What's happening in the background right now is the player list is getting updated, since this is the first run with the database being kind of reset. So you see our playlist is updated. That first initial run will be the only time we see that. So let me start first. We got our main activity. This then goes to either manage leagues or draft. So obviously with a clean database, we got to at least set up some leagues. So I'm going to start there. We got no leagues in our spinner, so I'll go ahead and create one. So let's get this created. We will call it Fantasy Football League 1. Okay. So we'll get that created. Next thing I'm going to do is manage that league. So with this, we'll edit the teams. And go ahead and add a team here. So we'll go Team 1, Team 2. Go ahead and add Team 3 and Team 4. So keep this easy. Okay. So if I look at these teams right now, obviously I can delete one if I want to. So we can delete team 4. We can also edit team 1. Now there's nothing to update here yet because we haven't drafted any players. So I'm going to go back and actually get the draft started. This way we got something to work with. So we'll start the draft for our only league we have here. I'm going to start, so I can pick my position right now. I've only got quarterbacks picked here. You'll notice if I change to running backs, I'll get my running backs here. So I'm going to start with my hometown guy, Nick Chubb. We'll start with our running back here from Cleveland. We'll nominate him. So first thing that happens on this enter bid activity, each team can put their bid in. So team 1, we're going to put in a bid of, let's say, 10. Team 2 will go 25, and team 3 will do 30. So we'll get team 3 be the winner. You'll notice that bid stays visible for whoever wins. And then after that bid is won, we go back to the nominate player. So if I go back to running back, I'll notice my guy Nick Chubb is no longer here. So that's good. So we don't want him to be an available player. So next guy we'll pick, we'll go with the quarterback, and we'll let team 1 sneak this one through. So we'll get a bit of 33 on team 1, and then just 1 and 2 on team 2 and 3. So again, you see the winning bid displayed there. And we'll go back to nominate player. So we'll do just one more here. We'll get a player out here. 1, 25, and 2. We'll give each team a player here. Okay, so that's win. We go back to nominate. Let's say we're done here. I'll go back to manage our teams. So we'll go back and edit team 1. So we see we've got our quarterback here. Team 2, have our wide receiver we just picked. And team 3, we have the first choice we had here was the running back. So now if I decide I want to delete Nick Chubb from that, I can do that. And then we can always go back to the draft. Get back there real quick. We'll go ahead if we want to, and we can always redraft Nick Chubb. So it's always an option there, but that's basically in and out of the app. Just to kind of close this out and show you a few things here. Obviously, project structure. So I've got database classes here. You've got your data access objects and then the contracts. Global helper class there. We have the different adapters, activities, and then some just plain old Java objects to track our leagues and teams and a few other things. And then we also have our activities, the actual XML files for the layouts. So a couple things I'll highlight on here, a few unique features. So first one is this player DB contract. One of the unique things I did here is put a view in. This just joins the player and team player tables, so it makes it easier on the data access later. Second one is the available players. So I'm doing this by taking all available players and then removing any players that are already on a team. So I just did this with the accept, just kind of wrote some SQL on that. And then finally the bid entry, you would have saw that in the demo. Again, this has the bid and entry, just kind of a cool use of the card view and recycler view. All right, so that's the demonstration to the PowerPoint slide here. So we went through the demonstration and just an overview of the project structure. So final thoughts here, future enhancements. So there's quite a bit I think could really make this app useful and kind of take it to the next level. The one I really wanted to get in was the salary caps, but I think there's some variability there with different league settings you could apply and maybe different ways you could do that. So I chose not to get into that for the first few iterations here, but definitely a future enhancement to make the bidding and drafting system a lot more smooth is to set that salary cap this way. People are limited as to who they can draft for how much. The next big thing would be the team scoring and the weekly competition. So, all the earlier fantasy football apps I compared this to, they do these weekly competitions, and those are a lot more involved in that you'd really need a feed from the NFL or from some other data source on weekly stats. You'd have to come up with some rules engine on how to calculate points for those, so that there's a lot involved there, but that really would make this a true fantasy football app to have that scoring functionality. and those weekly competitions amongst teams, and that really kind of builds out the drafting functionality to the next step and letting you use those teams. The final few things that I think really would help is having this stored in a remote database. Kind of what you saw from the app right now. It's really meant as more of a, I guess I'd call pass and play model, where everybody still has to be in the room at the same time. You got to pass around a device and enter bids. It's not the worst thing, but I think the app really lends itself to being more remotely managed with individual players running off their own devices in remote locations. So to do that, we need obviously a central server with some database, some RESTful services to get updates on players and handle that drafting remotely. So there's definitely a lot of infrastructure to build out there. And then finally, just one small thing. I mean, Database Factory, I think, would help for, even if it wasn't a remote database yet, if it was just a SQL-like database, I think that would help just for concurrent database operations. I think right now current functionality doesn't really need that, but with a remote database, it certainly would be useful. So, all right, and with that, that's everything I have on the FanBid app. So we'll close this out and hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.